At 7 months pregnancy, my mom had food poisoning. I weighed 2.5 pounds. I had 9 operations by the time I was 5 years old. I did not get hearing until I was 5 years old. I was bullied, made fun of, called a deaf mute.
Today, our guest is Peter Pasternak. He's been a founder, an operator, a chief financial officer, and many of you may recognize him from the national television show Flip This House.
My personal mission statement is every day I will positively affect as many people as possible. I had some friends, it's probably late 20s, early 30s, I was there, and were in a very bad accident, did not have insurance, and caused them to go bankrupt. If you're younger, sometimes you have this mentality that, well, I don't need it. I'm young and I'm going to be good. But you don't realize sometimes it's not you. It could be circumstances or other people involved in there. One of the biggest changes in my life was when I realized I would not be a people pleaser. I think that is absolutely one of the worst traits you can have. I'm a big believer of personal power and empowering people. You can't give what you don't have.
Good morning and welcome back to Inside the Vendor Network, an Everresi original series where we spotlight the operators, the platforms, and partners shaping how the SFR and BTR industry actually works. This episode is brought to you by Palisade. Palisade designs grout-free, waterproof wall panel systems that help operators, builders, and renovators deliver durable, high-performance spaces without the maintenance headaches. Built for efficiency, longevity, and real-world performance. Today, our guest is Peter Pasternak. Welcome to the show, Peter.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to spending an hour with you today.
I am so honored and grateful to have you on the show today. You were one of my favorite connections that I made in 2025. So Peter is a CPA. Don't blush here because I'm going to blow this up because you're pretty big time. But Peter is a CPA by training who began his career at Pricewaterhouse before moving into commercial banking, where he served as vice president of commercial lending at First American Bank. He's been a founder, an operator, a chief financial officer, and many of you may recognize him from the national television show Flip This House. But before we get into healthcare and benefits, I want people to understand who you really are, Peter, because your perspective has been shaped by real people, some real consequences, and not theory. So, Peter, I'm really glad you're here today. Let's get inside the vendor network.
Oh, I love that. That was a lot of words there on there. I'm glad I didn't have to say all that stuff. That was a great job.
Yeah, we can get into, before the titles, before the TV show, who is Peter?
So I love that. Just a little bit about myself. Born and raised in Connecticut. Came down for college. I went to the University of Georgia. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
I have an undergrad and master's degree in accounting. Couple things that people may not know about me personally was I'm 65 years old. By the time this probably airs, I'll be 66. My birthday's coming up. But,
Happy birthday.
Thank you so much. At 7 months pregnancy, my mom had food poisoning, went to labor. And they tried to stop the contractions because you can imagine 2 months early, almost 66 years ago, was not great. And so, but I was ready to come. I weighed 2.5 pounds. My early childhood memories are being in the hospital. I had 9 operations by the time I was 5 years old. A lot of things did not really develop. And probably the most serious is I did not get hearing until I was 5 years old. And so I was bullied, made fun of, called a deaf mute. And when I got my hearing back for about 3 years, I was in speech therapy and I learned how to speak phonetically. And as a little kid, I remember people making fun. I just wanted to be like everybody else. I was so tired of being made fun of. And now I can imagine to be like everybody else. And, when we talk about when we get to the TV show part, and I had to go to a recording studio, and you had told me, years ago, I'd end up in a recording studio for the beginning of a show that's on national television, I would have said, you're just crazy. But it goes to show with hard work. I remember many, many nights and hours in front of a mirror practicing how to speak and pronounce words. And I would tell you this, even today, there's certain words I have trouble pronouncing, but there was a time when I realized I either was just going to be quiet because I was afraid people would make fun of the way I spoke, or I would do. And if I make a mistake, I just move on because I usually have things I want to talk about and share. And I think it's interesting that sometimes people would take a look at where you are and they don't know your journey and they assume like your life went like that. And it does not work that way. And I laugh because I'm like, if the people only knew, what it took for me to get here. But back to University of Georgia, undergrad, master's in accounting, and my dream job had always been Price Waterhouse. As a little kid, I read the book, The Big Eight, Big Eight. Now it's the Big Four. It was Price Waterhouse then, not PwC, and that's where I wanted to work, and I did. And it's interesting. I would tell you that was the only job or company that I started that I didn't like. I got into it and I really wasn't good at it. And people were like, no, it can't be. You're good at everything. I'm like, no, I really was not good. I had passed the CPA exam in graduate school, but I had to work there 2 years and to get my license. And so at 2 years, I went and I gave notice. Didn't know what I was going to do. And I was in the banking world. I started as an auditor. Actually, by the time I was done, I was president of the bank. And yeah. And so I love to talk about businesses, being president of banks like Shark Tank. People come, they want to borrow money. But I learned a lot. I learned about, uh, different types of businesses, manufacturers, distributors, service companies. And so I'm a whiteboard kind of guy. I love to you have an idea. Let's just talk about, what it will take and what you need to go from where you are to what the implementation is. And one of the things I'm excited about, I always said, if I wasn't in the real estate world now, I would want to be a college professor. And, you put things out in the universe, you don't know what's going to happen. But a couple months ago, Kennesaw State University reached out to me, and I'm now the outside advisor for the Real Estate and Entrepreneurial Club. So I'm getting to do that, which is great. Excuse me.
I was able to sit in one of your classes on my last visit to Georgia and enjoyed it immensely. And those students are just eating it up.
There's nothing better than taking young people that want to be sponges and really, absorb your knowledge and allow them to come to my networking event. I've taken some to some of my real estate investing houses and show them why I invest in that area. So there's education goes on that is just a whole lot of fun. Absolutely. Kind of wrapping up a little bit about me, that I have a personal mission statement and I like sharing that with everybody. My personal mission statement is every day I will positively affect as many people as possible. So during COVID, I thought about retiring, but I have too much energy and it drives me. Anybody that knows me knows I'm up every morning at 4 a.m. Between 6 and 7, I do the things to run my company. And, 3 hours of not being interrupted is like 7 or 8. And so then it gives me time to go and speak it. Like tomorrow, I'm doing one of my presentations at one of the brokerages. And before COVID, did over 100 one-on-one meetings of coffee a month. Now, I still do over 30. So it gives me the time to be able to go and really live out what my personal mission statement is. So I better stop there because I could go on for 4 hours and we were just talking about what my life has started with and where it is today.
I think that is so important because the audience, there's bits and pieces of your past that are going to resonate with each audience member, right? And our audience of Inside the Vendor Network ranges from, people who are just entering into this space to people who, are a couple years from retirement and are considering different things. But thank you for sharing more about you. The story of you learning to talk phonetically makes so much sense to me in reference to healthcare and spending so much time in a medical area and getting so much treatment. But Peter, I wouldn't have believed that about you at all, because you're one of the most you're one of the biggest connectors of people. And I always tend to find that person in the room, because I kind of think of myself like that. Is it doesn't really I've never met a stranger, and I don't think you've ever met a stranger yourself either.
I love that, and here's the belief I have. What you put out comes back, and so when you have that positive energy in the room, you're absolutely gonna meet, and so we were destined to meet at the National Convention for NARCO. I mean, it's been great since that time, and people who have energy love to be around energy, and, really, when you think about the difference between an extrovert and introvert, and sometimes I ask people, like, "What are you?" and they're not sure. I'm like, "Okay, here's the test. If you're in a group of a lot of people and it energizes you, you're an extrovert. If you go home and you're absolutely exhausted from doing that, you're an introvert." Kind of like a quitless say of knowing what you are.
Yeah, I feel a little depressed afterwards, because I'm like, "Oh, that was so much fun. I could have gone on forever." And my fiance is an introvert, and he's like, "Oh, thank goodness we're home. I'm ready for bed." So it's definitely, we're two different people, and both are needed in this world. I mean, we need some of those introverts to slow us down sometimes and press that pause button to say, "Hey, maybe think through this." I'm more, what do they call it? Shoot, ready, aim. He's more like, ready, aim, shoot. So,
Yeah. Well, and here's the
uh,
thing. There's not a right or wrong person. There isn't. You need both. And so, but it's important to know who you are and what you are. So, and then figure out how you're going to take that and mold it to achieve what it is you're trying to get to.
yeah, and align it across your strengths. Because when you look back across accounting and banking and entrepreneurship and media, there's a lot of moments that really changed how you see people, how you see pressure in the world, or stress and responsibilities. So, share that a little bit with us. Like, your what really fascinates me about your past, and what, like, I think about, and I'm like, wow, that would be a great job, is at First American. Like, being able to have all those people come in with their ideas and their concepts. How inspired were you by some of these people, and be able to be a part of their journey? Um, and then the other side of telling them no, like, hey, you can't get behind that.
So I have like people call it Peterisms, but I live my life by like about 7 or 8 of those. And everybody wants me to write a book. It's so funny. I'm like, oh, I love that.
I want you to write a book.
Right, and stuff out there. But Peterism number one is all you owe somebody is your truth. And I've taken a lot of personal development, and what you realize is that we always assume when somebody says or does something, you go in your own mind and go, if I did that, this is what I'm thinking. The problem is we're all wired differently. So if I'm not telling you my truth, then really what I'm asking you to do is read my mind. And that's never a recipe for anything good to happen. So what I found is when I tell people no, a quick no is better than a long no. And I always try to help people and give them like, okay, we can't do that. But let me give you some names of some people that would possibly do that. So it was, and then if you do that, you don't burn any bridges and they come back.
It's still a resource,
100%.
right? And how many people came back to you after you pointing them in another direction and thanked you for that?
A
You
lot.
know, Peter, you were correct in slowing me down, or pointing me in a different direction. Here's what I learned. I bet you had so many people come back and be so grateful and thankful. I'm thankful for truth. It's not you can accept, but I'm thankful for it. And I may not be thankful in the moment, but 9 out of 10 times, somewhere down the road, I look back and I'm like, man, I was so grateful and thankful for that.
So let's see. I want to go back to a question you asked because I think it ties into like where we've gone.
Yeah.
One of the most, I think, important lessons that I learned, and it is so freeing. And when I say this, people at first are going to not really understand, and I'm going to connect the dots. One of the biggest change in my life was when I realized I would not be a people pleaser. I think that is absolutely one of the worst traits you can have. Now, let's talk about why that is. Usually when you're like, and understanding, I'm a big believer of personal power and empowering people. So when you're pleasing people, the problem with that is when they change their mind or stuff, which you have no control over, it affects you. And so you got to do what's best for you. You can't give what you don't have. You think about when you go on an airplane and they talk about if it goes down, put that mask over you before the baby. Why is that? You can't help the baby if you haven't helped yourself. And so a lot of people really get stuck in pleasing others and letting people rent space in their head. And once I realized that I could help more people by making sure I've helped myself so I'm available and a resource, it was a huge, really change in where I'm at today. And when I mentor people, I ask them, like, do you think you're a people pleaser? Most people say yes. And then I go, we're going to change that. If you really want to get to a certain thing and be able to, help so
Yeah.
you've got to be able to do that. And part of that is when you say no. Listen, we all have to say no to certain things. You have to say no to certain things so you can say yes to things you're most passionate about. And so you lose credibility when you say yes and you really don't mean it.
That's right.
And so what do you want to be known for? Do you want to be somebody who has integrity? When you say you're going to do it, they know.
When there's follow through.
Yeah. And so that's an important piece.
I love that so much. I mean, I think that was I'm a recovered people pleaser is what I always say. And it was, and you learn that through the years. And I've had employees and teams that I've built and have reported to me. I've participated on teams, and it's one of the strengths that I watch some of the greats really do well is know what they're good at, as you said at the beginning. Be able to identify what others are good at and aligning them to work together to develop and create teams that can lift massive things when aligned right. And then being able to be the clarity in the room to say no or yes or encourage. And not enable, other people pleasing activity. It's so important. You're spot on with that. It's a developed skill. If you don't have it, if you're blessed with it, I mean, keep running with it.
I
But
think part of it is as you get older and you've been through more things, you understand that it's actually empowering not to be a people pleaser than to be an enabler as it. And, we all have to get to the understanding the importance of personal development. I think a lot of times that is so underrated, especially when you have younger people and you're trying to, mentor them, is they have to understand that their mind and what they think has a huge effect on what they actually do.
there's a lot of correlation with nurturing children as well. Is you don't want to do everything for them. At the beginning, I was afraid sometimes in my leadership to give someone the hard project, but giving someone the hard project and even letting somebody fail. When my son was little, I remember standing in the kitchen and I'm like, don't touch the oven. It's hot. Don't touch the oven. It's hot. And if he touched it, he wasn't going to burn himself, but I was teaching him danger, right? Don't do that. It's hot. And so finally, I just kind of let him touch it. And he's like, oh, and he jumped. And I was like, oh, it's hot. He learned more by touching it than me telling him don't touch it. Right. And then most likely me telling him not to touch it caused him more curiosity. Why can't I touch it? Right. So I just think that failure is a big part of my success. Has failure been a big part of your success?
Yes, but I don't define it as failure.
Yeah.
There is no growth in comfort, right? Growth happens to get outside. So what you might think is a failure is really the ability to get you to where you want to get to, because nobody gets it right the first time.
It's certainly.
Yeah. Listen, I started my networking event 15 plus years ago. People told me I was crazy. It was a bad idea, but I wanted to have the largest real estate networking event here in Atlanta. And so what I know is I don't care what people say. If you can articulate to people what's in it for them and not you, they will come. And it's like people who came back and told me, that's Peter, forget that idea. If you're a big Shark Tank fan, it's like when Mr. Wonderman says, take that idea, put it in the back and shoot it. But I worked hard to be able to articulate it. Didn't get it right to begin with. Had to tweak. If you're going to be successful over many years, things change. You're going to have to be able to tweak and and embrace that change in order to really take it to the next level.
So let's talk about healthcare today, because a lot has changed in healthcare over the last 20 years. I've even got some numbers and data around the bottom line. And I think people are wanting change when it comes to affordable healthcare. So at what point did healthcare stop being theoretical for you and start feeling more personal to you?
I love that question. When I started businesses and after wages, the most expensive cost was healthcare, right? And if you're a business owner, you understand. And sometimes you're a small business, you feel like you can't even afford it. And so for me, when it became personal was I had some friends, it's probably late 20s, early 30s. I was there and were in a very bad accident, did not have insurance, and caused them to go bankrupt.
Wow.
And, if you're younger, you sometimes have this mentality that, well, I don't need it. I'm young and I'm going to be good. But you don't realize sometimes it's not you. It could be circumstances or other people involved in there. And, the problem is when, there was a time when most people would not leave a job because they were tied to their insurance. It was a handcuff and you were just one pink slip away from potential financial instability. And so once, you have people that has happened to, you understand how devastating that is, then you just want to make people more aware. And in today's world, healthcare has gone up and up and up. And a lot of people are choosing whether to not have any coverage or if they do certain things that they can't afford. Medications, pills, things that are life-threatening that is just heartbreaking that, people don't understand there is another alternative.
Sure. You know what felt the most personal to me at my previous employer, I had 53 employees the day I exited from that organization. And we had gone into a self-insured situation and, had some, insurance policies against that. And it's just a different way to buy group insurance. And we were seeking, lower costs. And when you start to dive into the needs, of course, with HIPAA, you don't see any details, but you understand the greater needs from a higher level on medical care, prescription. Frankly speaking, it felt very broken to me, and I was really concerned about my employees. Then there's this second set of group who were my subcontractors. I mean, I had more subcontractors than I had actual employees. And those were the ones that really scared me the most. I mean, it kept me awake sometimes at night thinking like, man, I hope Pablo doesn't chop a finger off today or get hurt or get in a car accident while driving. Man, he's got, 5 little babies at home and a wife, who's a stay-at-home mom and taking care of the babies. And, you get to know your employees, and I genuinely, genuinely care about my people. And so I want them to have the least amount of risk exposure. I wanted the business to have the least amount of risk exposure because when healthy people lead to healthy companies as well, right? And so it's one thing impacts another thing. And it was really, the system is expensive. It's confusing. When I first sat and evaluated one plan to the next, I was working alongside of my HR department and she was amazing. and had a tremendous amount of experience. And I consider myself fairly intelligent. And I was completely confused by all the different options and the deductibles and the not deductibles and the in network and the out of network and major medical, not major medical, and prescription this and copay that. And I was like, oh my gosh, how are and just to bring me back a little bit, I was licensed in life, health, accident insurance way back in the day. I was selling some Aflac insurance in my early 20s. And I'll tell you, one of the best benefits of that was simply educating myself on life insurance and understanding supplemental insurance. And when I learned about it, I was like, why wouldn't anyone buy this? This is crazy. Like, for a couple dollars a paycheck, you can just have that much added peace of mind, right? System is expensive. It's confusing. It's unpredictable. People delay care, skip preventative visits, hope nothing serious happens when families are paying tens of thousands of dollars a year. So when I met you, or bring the audience, I was sitting there having lunch. Peter came up. You were speaking with Greg and Tanya, and we got introduced. You handed me, I saw your card. You said insurance, and I think it even said something about subcontractors, and you just hit a spot for me. And I was like, whoa, you have insurance for subcontractors, like affordable? And you're like, yes. And you were in the midst, I think you were getting ready to go up on stage, and I was like, I need your card. And then we circled back, and I'm so glad you did, because you're a guy that follows through. So let's talk a little bit about, why insurance? Because you're also an investor, you're an owner operator, you own rental properties. When you say, hey, well, I only commit to things that I know I can follow through on, you're adding a pretty big deal on top of your already busy plate, already full plate. I am too, now that I can offer this insurance through this platform that you introduced me to, and we can spread the word to the world about options that are affordable.
Yeah.
What got you involved, Peter?
All right,
That was
I want to just clarify one thing.
Mhm.
Uber is not a taxi cab. Airbnb is not a hotel, although they're better. So what we're talking about is health coverage, but it's health coverage, not health insurance. I say it's better. So you got to be careful because it's got different regulatory. So I just want to edit a little bit on there. So what got me excited about it is I'm at the stage in my life, if I don't feel like I can massively affect in a positive way, I just don't want to do it. And people are always talking about health coverage, and especially in today's environment, people can't afford it. You've got people wondering, are subsidies going to be here? Are they not going to be here? And so when I was introduced to Impact, which is the name of the company that we've been working with, the first thing that struck me was it's a nonprofit 501c3. And I'm a heart-to-heart person just like you are. And when they talk about wanting to help people stay healthy instead of making money, it just spoke to me. Now, I understand, in businesses, you have to make money, but if you are dealing with nonprofits, it's just a different mindset on there. And it's interesting because not only are they a nonprofit, but there's certain things that I love. Now, most of the people I know, and I think the people that have the most challenge of getting affordable health coverage are self-employed 1099s and small businesses. And so that's what I have focused in on, because those are the people. And let's just start with the 1099 self-employed. You were talking about your subcontractors. Those people, a lot of times, if you're in real estate, you talk about roofers. You're talking about people that are going to probably have a little bit more access because you go up on a roof, you have a better statistical chance.
sliver.
Exactly on that. And so, those folks don't have benefits. And a lot of times, let's be honest, sometimes they're living paycheck to paycheck or on there. And so they don't have a lot of money. And yet they understand if God forbid something happens, what's going to happen to their family. And so I'll tell you a little story this morning. So I was dealing with one of my realtor friends, and he was complaining, 60 years old. He had just gotten his health care bill and had gone up to $1,232 a month with a $7,500 deductible. So I love to say to people, hey, can I just
With a $7,500 deductible, you got a mortgage payment with a $7,500 deductible.
And I think some people are like, well, it's either that or nothing. So I love what we're doing to let people know, no, it's not all or nothing. So I gave him a quote. Instead of $7,500, I gave him a $2,500. So look, a lot of times he was on some medications that he still wasn't getting to $7,500. So a $5,000 difference. And instead of over $1,200, the quote was $376. Is you save $900 a month with a $5,000 less deductible. And
That's a win.
I mean, so people look.
Terrible coverage, maybe even better coverage in some sense.
Oh yeah, because that 1,200 did not include prescriptions. So what we're talking about is comprehensive. Doctor bills. It includes hospitals. It includes prescriptions. And so I personally have been on it because I'm always like, if I'm going to talk about something, I want to talk about my experience, not somebody else's on there. And that way I can answer more questions for my own story. Doesn't mean it's going to be somebody else's, but I just think that's important. I always use this expression. Okay, you have an Italian restaurant, right? And you go and people go, well, tell me what's the best stuff on your menu. And you go, I don't know. I go to Johnny G's over here. If you don't use it yourself, like, why are you doing that? That's got no credibility.
Yeah. And be like, I don't need my stromboli.
Yeah, go over there. But I'm telling you, when you're doing it, come to me. I mean, it's kind of crazy. But I love that it's nonprofit because it's important. The other thing is for providers, they like it because it's nonprofit. They're not trying to deny claims, right? If you know things about insurance, sometimes you have to fight it. But even if it does, they're making money on keeping your money before they pay it. So nonprofit, they're not. They're paying claims as of today in less than 17 days. So what happens? You now have doctors and different providers that like it. And here's the thing: I had a doctor tell me this, and so this was like an education. I never heard this before, but now I have. Doctors were telling me that a lot of times when they prescribe stuff, they prescribe what the insurance was going to cover instead of what was best for the patient. Well, now
minimize the time of the back and forth.
100% on there. And so now, you're getting like the best medical advice because it's not driven by whether it's going to be paid or not paid, and you're not going to do it. And so I have worked hard and I have focused, even though it works for really anybody. I guess my passion is about the self-employed, 1099s, and small businesses. Now, I want to the small businesses. When you're a small business owners, one of the things when I was president of a bank and I'd ask owners, tell me what your biggest challenge is. And it didn't make a difference what the industry was. They all would say getting good people. And if you're busy, you know how hard it is. A lot of small businesses cannot afford benefits or health coverage. And so maybe they're interviewing somebody good and they're going to lose that. So think about it. If you said, look, I found someone that can give affordable health coverage. And then they come and we give them a quote and they realize that's paying less than what they were paying when somebody even paid a little bit. You're going to get better people that you can attract because even though you don't have it, you now have access to people like us that can take care of them. That makes a big difference.
Well, let me ground this conversation with some data because you're right, Peter. So according to the Kaiser Family Foundation, the average annual premium for an employer-sponsored health insurance as opposed to coverage is now close to $27,000 per year. And when you include deductibles, prescriptions, services, Axios reported total annual healthcare costs for a family of 4 can exceed $35,000 a year. And over the last 5 years alone, family premiums have increased about 26% in the last 5 years, outpacing both inflation and wage growth. So we're all talking about inflation, which, yes, is upon us, but healthcare has outpaced inflation. So there's a big disconnect. And if you look at it over the last 20 years, it's increased 2/3. So, I have a 21-year-old. I go back. I had a child during that time. It was fairly cost effective to have my son, and he ended up with a cesarean. I think I had Aetna at the time. I worked for Nextel Communications, a very large corporation, so they had great benefits. Um, and for at that time, I was 28 years old when I had my son, and that could have been pretty devastating to a 28-year-old, right? Like, you don't have piles of cash, you don't have tons of savings. We were just on the brink of buying our new house. We were newlyweds. Like, you're just getting started. We're still paying off student loans and all the things, and you're just learning. So, I know I ended up with a cesarean, which was a little more costly. My son ended up in the NICU for 10 days because he was 3 weeks early. So, and I think I ended up having $1,000 deductible. And that is all I paid out of pocket. That is unheard of today. That in today's environment would have minimum cost me $7,000 to $10,000 depending. I know my deductible right now at my current employer is $7,500.
Yeah.
And the premium I'm spending is a lot higher than I was spending. I think for just my son and I, because he's 21, he can still be in my plan. Um, I'm looking at switching over to Impact because it's actually going to be less. It's going to be more cost effective than my employer sponsored plan. Isn't that amazing?
Yep, I hear that all the time. I hear that all.
I know. So, so people don't, and people are avoiding healthcare out there, right? Have you ever been? I know I've been in this situation. I had a tooth issue going on. I knew it was going to cost some money to get it done, and I prolonged and prolonged and prolonged, and then it ended up being a root canal. You have a little cavity. You push it off because you don't want to pay the deductible, this, that, and then what do you end up with? A root canal. It can be much worse than a root canal, though. This can be heart conditions that have long-term effect on your heart, go unattended. People push it off out of fear. They don't want to address it because they don't know the unknown. And a lot of people just avoid going to the doctor because they're afraid, even when they have insurance, of what that bill might end up looking like, or that deductible and how that's going to impact them. Or they go and then they're strapped with all of these bills, and did they really have coverage?
Yeah. So I'll tell you a quick little story that I think a lot of people could relate to. So I had a dear friend of mine that had to go for an operation. She had some lady issues. Okay. So she picked a hospital that was in network, and then she got a bill from the anesthesiologist. The anesthesiologist was not an employee of the hospital. They were a 1099. So the bill was covered at a much lower level, right? Because a lot of times, if it's not in network, it's changed. And
She was technically out of network, even though she picked an in-network hospital.
so she was mad. And she goes, okay, so I just want to be clear. So before they put the mask on to put me down for surgery, excuse me, are you part of the network in here? Here, I miss crazy. Now, one of the great things about Impact we talk about is there's no in-network and out-of-network. You can go to any.
Go to your doctor, the one you trust, the one you've been going to.
Yeah. The other thing that's really nice is there's no enrollment period. You can sign up anytime during the year. And that's a great thing to be able to, like, you're afraid, well, maybe I missed the deadline. Now I've got to go X amount of time to do that. So those are really two great things that I'm proud of to be part of to, again, help people.
I am too. I feel like I have the golden ticket, in a sense, right? And so this health coverage is filling a gap that has been out there. It's a non-for-profit 501c3. That is why the cost of this coverage is less expensive without giving up the comprehensive coverage. So at the core, you know, Peter, it's about giving people access to healthcare benefits that or health coverage benefits that aren't dependent on having a traditional employer. Let's face it, there's a lot of people, especially in our industry, in the single family rental build-to-rent space right now, that are out of work. And they've been out of work. And these are talented, educated people, right? And they're really considering becoming a fractional consultant because of their experience. This is a great option for those 1099ers. My fiance works for a plumbing organization, and they're a smaller organization. When I say that, they're a I would call a small to medium sized business. And the employer, he will give like a stipend toward his employees getting health coverage or adjust their salary or their pay. And there's some creativity happening there to attract and keep good plumbers and employees within that organization. But at the end of the day, it's not because he doesn't want to offer it. It's because he can't afford to offer it. And then tack on all of the legwork and the understanding to maintain, keep that up, understand managing the back end, the business side of managing all of that. It's a lot for a business starting up, a business who is scaling maybe from sub 1 million to about 3 or 4 million. We didn't have that many employees. When you don't have a large group of employees, your risk isn't spread across a larger group, so your premiums are much higher. This is essentially I or you are getting into a group of a larger network of people. And that's also how the cost is able, because the risk is spread, and it's health sharing. So just to be clear, Impact does offer group plans. I don't want to deter anyone, but what you and I wanted to talk about today was 1099 subcontractors, because that is a big part of who this audience is, who don't fit the employee-employer model.
Right. And you think about it too. Let's say you're out and maybe you're doing something part-time and you love to be your own boss. But the thing that's holding you back is the having health coverage. And then you take a look and go, "Oh, wait a minute. I'm taking that part off the table because I'm able to get this." Again, when you see how affordable it is, you realize how much profit is going into these larger, big insurance companies. And then again, it's become just incredibly difficult for self-employed people or people who maybe want to go out on their own, but they feel handcuffed to where they are. And then they're afraid, what if I lose my job? Everybody knows how expensive COBRA is to be able to do this. And so it's, it's such a great alternative. And, I believe when you help people, good things happen. And so I love being part of something that's nonprofit that really cares about people.
Yeah. I like to say the costs are predictable and they're understandable. So people aren't constantly worried about what if something is going to cost them. What if I go to the doctor, what's it going to cost me? This is easy to understand. You get to choose your doctor. You don't have to, there's no in-network, out-of-network game. It also makes it easier to actually get routine and preventative care. Preventative care is the name of the game. Instead of waiting until something turns into an emergency, a big part of that is removing the fear around using coverage the right way. And that's really being preventative. I'm going to be 50 this year.
You look at you were 30 years old.
I'm going to be 50 in March. And, it's the mammograms, it's the colonoscopies, it's all those things that, they're encouraging that you start getting, in your mid 40s, because early detection, it equals curability. Is the difference between curability, survival, versus not surviving. So when people feel confident, they're better employees too, right? Aren't we better business owners when we're healthy?
Yeah, and you're promoting that. The other thing too that they started a couple of years ago, which I really love, is that you can get up to $150 a month credit towards your deductible for things that will keep you healthy. So that includes gym membership, massages, vitamins. I mean, all these things. And because they want to encourage people, and a lot of those you're already spending, all you got to do is fill out a form and send them. And it goes, like I said, up to $150 a month. And, you know, so basically $1,800 a year you can use towards your deductible based on things that a lot of us are already doing.
So for entrepreneurs and subcontractors that are listening, or employer groups who are interested in comparing this to their existing offering to their employee base, what can we do? We're going to put the link in the comments of this episode, and they can get a quote. How easy is it to get a quote?
It's easy. All you got to do is put in your birthday.
Yeah.
Put in, if it's more than one, if it's more than one person, you put the birthday of the oldest person. Then you just put, do you want a quote for one person, 2, or 3 plus? 3 plus doesn't. If you have 6 kids, you're only paying for 3, and it covers everybody. With that, your birthday and how many people you want covered, it will give you 4 quotes. The 4 quotes are going to be based on what we would know as a deductible. They call it a primary responsibility amount. It's $2,500, $5,000, $7,500, and $10,000. And it gives you, and you can choose from there. And then if you say, oh my gosh, love that, you hit the button that says enroll now. You fill out the application on there. Took me less than 15 minutes, and you're covered the first day of the next month. I mean, it's that easy. And then if you have any questions you want to reach out, we're happy to answer, any type of questions that they might have about it. And, a lot of times people go, well, gosh, it seems too good to be true. Well, I thought that. But that's why I went on it. And again.
So how long have you been on this, on impact health coverage?
So before I was on Medicare, which now I do have the supplement through this. 4 years I was on it. And
wow.
And here's the other thing. Because they're a nonprofit, you get a back office for your impact, and it's transparent. They tell you how much money they have. They tell you how many claims they have. They show you all your claims, where they are, what they paid, what they renegotiated, things that you would never saw, or I never saw from anybody over the years. I was at Blue Cross, Amwaller, and stuff. Nobody ever showed that to me on there. And again, because,
they're non-for-profit.
It makes a big difference.
Yeah. I'm so excited to be able to offer this. And so, I was messing with the calculator the other day and just and I've been bringing this up to everyone I'm talking to. I've got a subcontractor that installs the showers for Palisade. 24-year-old young man. He is spending about $500 a month right now with a traditional self-direct pay. We ran him through the calculator and it spit out $73.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa. Right? With I think that was with a $2,500 deductible. Don't quote me on that. But go to the link. I'm encouraging any audience member, go to the link just type in, like Peter said, your birthday of the oldest person that you would want coverage for. If you've got 4 people in the family, you got mom, dad, and 2 kids, you know, pick the person with the biggest age or the oldest age, put that in, type in 3, people that you're looking for coverage. And like Peter said, 3 is the max. You could have 6 kids and you're paying for a family of yourself plus 3. Um, so entrepreneurs and subcontractors, don't worry. Don't let this keep haunting you, because I know this haunted me when I lost my job in March and I was faced with Cobra. Um, I think I paid my one premium because I was fearful of not having coverage of, I think, close to $1,400. And that just covered myself and my son. And it was the normal coverage that I had. But I was like, how do people afford this? Especially when just faced with losing their job. So there are options out there that are affordable. Um, so don't let this keep haunting you. Don't allow this to consume, some fears that you have in that are weighing in the back of your mind. Free that space up. Where you talked about things renting space in your brain. Don't let this rent free anymore. We're in the SFR BTR industry. We can't allow free rent. We need those rents. Don't allow this to keep space in your brain. So stay healthier.
And to add one thing, don't believe that you don't have an option. Use it. And, that's why I was excited to be able to come on and share because, knowledge is power and understanding this. Oh, and when, it works for you, what's the best thing to do? Share it with people,
Share it with others.
Yeah, our link, it will be good. You can, more than welcome to give it to anybody else. And they have questions and stuff. They can reach out to us. We're always happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Yeah, DM either Peter or myself on LinkedIn. DM us Impact, IMPACT. We'll send you a link. Like I said, the link will be in the comments, but we can get you more information on the coverage options, answer any questions, get you connected with someone at Impact, a professional there that can answer more questions if we're not able to answer those questions. But now let's get into the fun part of Inside the Vendor Network. We call this the lightning round. I'm going to rapid fire a couple questions off to you, Peter. So what is one myth about health benefits that people seem to believe today?
I think that they believe that it is very challenging and that companies want to decline information that gets sent to them.
Yes, and that's debunked today. So one thing people underestimate about preventative care.
Well, they just think that it doesn't really make a difference what you do. Especially as you get older, you understand that choices that you made before have an impact on your health of what you're doing today, whether it's food, weight, exercise, nutrition, drugs, smoking, any of that stuff. Your body is gonna reap the benefits, or
You get one,
yeah.
and it carries it through. And my joints are just a little stiffer, a little more stiff. I mean, just playing sports. It's not all bad things that lead to it. It's, sports injuries. I was a soccer player, softball player, I was a catcher at points. So my knees, those things catch up to you later in age. You don't think about it in your 20s and your 30s because you're invincible. You feel invincible, but you're not. So preventative care will help you possibly avoid care. I saw a meme once. It was ignore your health and until you can't, or to something to that. It's like you'll be forced to. Like if you don't, at some point you're going to be forced to pay attention to your health. So prevention or treatment, which matters more?
I think prevention, because when you prevent, you're going to have less things you need. But once you need it, you're going to do it. But again, prevention will put you in better shape not to have to treat things.
One daily habit that supports better health.
Oh, every day, one of the first things I do is I write in my gratitude journal, because what you focus on expands. And when people go, "Well, Peter, why are you always happy?" It's because I live a gratitude attitude.
Yeah, you start your day with gratitude. Like, I'm grateful, even for some of the challenges. Hey, I'm grateful for this challenge. I'm going to learn a lot through this. um, what does impact health mean to you personally, Peter?
So what it means to me is there is now a vehicle and an opportunity to save people's lives, because again, by not being covered, to not be able to go in and get treated. I mean, it could be death. It could have such a unbelievably negative impact on your family, and the ability to be able to offer something that can help people just warms my heart.
100%. It warms mine too. Well, welcome back to Inside the Vendor Network, an Everresi original series where we spotlight the operators, platforms, and partnerships shaping how the SFR and BTR industry actually works. This episode was brought to you by Palisade. Palisade designs grout-free, waterproof wall panel systems that help operators, builders, and renovators deliver durable, high-performance spaces without the maintenance headaches. Built for efficiency, longevity, and real world performance. Today, our guest was Peter Pasternak, and I am so grateful for having you on the show today. Please subscribe to our channel so we can continue to offer these great um, conversations, especially in times like now with some of the political signaling that is occurring. I think it's ever so more important to highlight and amplify people like Peter and myself who care about this industry. We do care about our residents. We care about our resident experience. This is a great option to offer your residents, right, Peter? If your residents don't have coverage, healthier residents really make good business sense as well.
100% on there, because remember, if they're healthier, they're going to stay longer. And the byproduct is you make more money, but it feels good to do the next right thing.
Oh, they're going to work and be able to pay rent and take care of the home better, because we all take better care of our homes when we feel better. My house is a little bit cleaner when I've got a little more energy. So I am your host, Yovonne Kenny, and we'll see you next time on Inside the Vendor Network. Thank you for joining us today. We are an Everresi original series. Thank you.